Let's bring in my sis, Katie.
Oh, thank you so much. And please, let's not cry.
No, look,
Yes.
I told Deontay, who's going to be on the show tomorrow, I was like, I'm putting you last because you're not going to make me cry at the beginning of my show, okay? So for starters, you are this isn't something that I always hear a lot, at least around here in Seattle, Black woman, 4-time Emmy nominated producer. You have your own foundation. You do so many things. And honestly, I just want to start right here in terms of your foundation being called the Katie Hall Foundation, and you named it after yourself.
Yes.
And there was a weird point in my life when I just didn't feel like, why would I name something after myself? Why would I name something after myself? But there's so many other things that are named after people. They just don't always look like us. What was your inspiration for your foundation, and what gave you that courage to be like, you know what? I'm going to name this after me?
Thank you so much. And you know what? I didn't even really think about it much. And I do get that a lot. People always say, hey, do you like that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy? In some ways it is. Yeah. And what's the issue with that? My daughter name is Keila Hall Jr. And I hope that she has a daughter, and I hope that she names her Keila Hall III as well. And I hope it continues. The Katie Hall Foundation is not about me, but that was a rebirth for me as well. And I'm sure the more we get to know each other, and I love Converge. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm sure I'll be able to share more of my story. But for me, the foundation helped me as an adult be able to give back the debt that I felt like I had to fulfill to society. And so I felt like, why not call it the Katie Hall Foundation? Because eventually I want to be in a position where we can give out serious funding to women and girls to be able to go after their goals.
Now, I definitely want to know more about the foundation, but I am curious to know, what was that debt that you felt that you needed to feel? Like, what was that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in college, I actually had another organization called Sisters of Success, and I co-founded it. And the reason why we co-founded it is at that time, I was facing some pretty serious time in prison. And I was a college student. I was a first generation college grad as well. So I didn't really have a blueprint per se. My blueprint was a different world, like straight up watching a different world. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna do this. I had all the social stuff down. I had all of the, I was a decent student, but I knew that I had to be able to break certain generational, curses in some ways. And the way I was going to do that was via education. Wow. And that was my vehicle. And at the end of me about to graduate from college, that's when I was facing prison time. And at that point, I really didn't know what my next steps were. But I had a few good people that stayed by me throughout that whole duration of that time. And I remember telling my counselor in particular, I love counselors, by the way. So, hey, nothing wrong with it. Okay. I keep a counselor on deck normally. Yes. I'm working with Ashley now to try to get a new one.
Come on.
But I told my counselor then, I said, regardless, because at that point they weren't sure what that prison time for me was going to look like. And I remember telling her, regardless if I'm in prison or not, I'm going to have to pivot what I'm going to do, but I'm still going to get this organization back started up. It might start with a book first, because I was thinking if I'm going to be away for 5 years, because at that point we knew the 30 wasn't going to be the case, I'm going to be productive. And so the foundation was already written all the way back in 2007.
It's interesting that you say you were able to create all of that after coming out of prison. And I know a lot of people go in and out of that prison pipeline. And do you feel that you were able to pick that up because it was something that you wanted to do rather than people trying to force you to do it, to kind of like change who you were to where you wouldn't go back?
Yeah. And I never been in prison. I was facing 30 years in prison.
Gotcha.
And I just want to just correct that, because I know we got so many great leaders that spent time in prison and they came out and did things. And that wasn't my story. But what is my story is I do have a felony. And what I will say is that it's a very difficult hurdle that you have to get over. And so I was always honest, and I never, I told employers, hey, this is what it is. Some people slam the door in my face, even with contracts of being a business owner. But I had to find my place of being authentic. And I felt like for me, that was being able to ensure that people within the education system, at least, that they were going to get their opportunities. I have many family members that spent serious time in prison. And for me, even before that, I was always doing this type of work. I made a mistake. I made a mistake like many people do. I had to pay for college, and I did have both parents helping to pay for college too. It wasn't enough.
College is expensive.
Yes,
child.
It wasn't enough. And, so I guess when I really think about the work we do today, it was what I needed. It was what I needed when I was in college. It was what I needed when I was in high school. And that's why I make time for it.
Wow. And I think that also brings us back to your foundation. Like, you have Girls on the Rise. That literally, I want to say, sign up starts this Thursday, right?
Yes, it
Can
does.
you tell us a little bit about Girls on the Rise? What came about it? Like, how that really started? Like, that's something where I always tell people growing up, I went to Boys and Girls Club. I built my first computer when I was in 5th grade. Like, my aunt, she taught me Photoshop when I was in 4th grade. So it's like a lot of the things that I know how to do now in my 30s are things that I probably wouldn't have known or at least been as interested in if I didn't learn when I was like 7 and all the way up to about 13 years old. So what made you start that? And, when people join, what comes out of it?
I thank you so much. I love Girls on the Rise. that makes me jump out of the bed in the morning. Not only do I have 2 daughters, but truly, I thought both of my daughters were boys. I knew I was going to be a boy mom. I had no idea. And I'm like, okay, God, you got jokes. Okay. You going to give me daughters? Really? And so with that, like, truly, it was them. And then it wasn't just them anymore. It was about other girls that were like them. And then, basically, like, I thought about my career too. I thought about like all the hurdles I had and some of the most basic things that I had to go through in college. First time being around, I grew up in Detroit. And we were 98% Black. My high school was. And so by the time I went to college, it was predominantly white school. And I thought about, okay, how do I get people, these girls, to really be able to work not only with their own sisters, but also girls, period, across the board. Because at the end of the day, when we're in the workplace, we can get over all that other BS and get straight down to work, right?
And it makes an easier workplace. Like, when you're able to bounce ideas off of each other and there's no competition and you actually like each other and you can vibe with each other, it's just a whole different situation.
Yes, absolutely. And that's pretty much the reason why we started Girls on the Rise. And we purposely kept it open to being statewide, and we kept it open to all girls being able to join it, because we want to make sure that we're able to break down some of those basic barriers so that when we're in a workplace, we can be able to actually get our work done.
Now, what are some of the jobs that you like help them get? Because I see that there's like paid position, there's like leadership. Like, what comes with some of that?
Everything's paid. Because when I think back to when I was in college, I don't know what it was like for you.
I dropped out. It's expensive. I'm not even gonna hold y'all.
It's expensive, right? Right? It's very expensive. But my internships weren't paid. They weren't paid, right? And we were putting in like 30, 35 hours a week and they weren't paid. So we pay everybody. We don't ask anybody for anything. We do have volunteers that come in too, which are very much needed. But for our actual girls, we pay them. And the reason why we pay them, because we want them to understand the value of their time and the value of a dollar. And when I think back to what got me in trouble, you know what I mean? It has something to do with that. And so I want to make sure that that's my part. That's what Keela's giving back to society.
And you know what's so crazy? It's like, I know with me, love my parents to death. They're probably watching, so no shade to y'all on this one. But
love you, parents.
I definitely didn't have a lot of structure in terms of what to do with money and how to deal with money. And so I think something like what you're doing for these girls at their ages, it's gonna like really set them up for success. So that way they can also break those generational curses. Because I already know somebody back in the day jacked up the money. And I'm over here paying for it now, trying to figure it out to this day. Real quick, I really want to ask you, and this is something that I'm always wondering about. What do you say when it comes to finding who KD is, embracing your power, especially as a Black woman that has to take up space in a room? How did you figure that out? And what advice do you have to that next little girl that's just like, you know what? I just don't know what to do. I'm going to just stand in the corner.
No, I feel that straight up. And keep in mind, I have 3 older sisters. So I'm 4th generation. Wow. So I had 3 strong Black women in front of me and they could fight too, like in every area. So some of the things that I learned is like, you got to be who you are and you got to bring your special juice to the table. And the things that I got made fun of when I was younger are the things I make money off of today. And so
I know that's right.
Yeah. It's real. You know, those little things about yourself that are kind of quirky or different. You know, find ways of monetizing that and be okay with that. And there's nothing wrong with us monetizing our gifts and our talents. And we gotta all find that 10 to 15 or 20 or 25% that we give away. And for me, I give that away in the foundation. That's where I give my time for free, but we got to monetize our gifts. We really do, because it is important to leave generational wealth, not just financial wealth, but it's important to leave generational wealth no matter how we're giving it and doing it. But our kids are going to be in a different world. And if we don't leave them with resources, you know, we could see things happening all over again. We could see a repeat of slavery. And I just don't want that for my girls or any girls that's in our programs.
And we're already kind of entering a new world, messing around with this metaverse. Let's be honest, y'all. So real quick before we get ready to head out, you know, I would love to know one thing that you would say to 7-year-old Katie.
Oh man. When I was 7, that was when I first experienced death up close and personal. So what I would say to her, that 7-year-old girl that was crying and I was afraid and I was thinking like, okay, which one of me and my siblings are going to die first? What I would tell that little girl is these experiences, they might end up being films later on. So it's cool. Like wrap those experiences up, put them away somewhere, but continue to move forward. Don't chump up when you're in those different situations where you can shine, and don't be afraid to also give other people opportunity and spaces to shine too. And that's what I would tell her.
I love that. I feel like talking to that little girl is so important because that's the one that was like, I don't know what to do. And now you're like, girl, you see what we went through? Look at us now. We all right. Real quick, head on over to that camera right there. Let's say, look on over at that camera right there and let everyone know how they can get involved with KD Hall and all of her amazingness.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Converge. Sincerely. Thank you, Omari. Thank you, Besa. Everyone, like sincerely. And in order to get involved with KD Hall Foundation, it's simple. Go to our website. It's kdhallfoundation.org. As Besa said, we are gearing up for our 2023 Girls on the Rise, and we need you, regardless if you're a mother, father, grandmother, a young person. We pay all of our young people to be able to really advance themselves and others. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for coming. I know it was like a tight squeeze. I was like, we're gonna find you. We're gonna find a spot. Okay, we can put you first. This is gonna happen. All right.